Hey guys and gal, in sci-fi settings, the vision of a future Earth has been explored countless times. Sometimes nuclear holocausts turn our world into a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Sometimes AIDS gets airborne and
Warhammer
ruins
40k
everyone's shit. And sometimes communism
just
prevails,
about to
leading
start.
us to a glorious golden utopia. China #1. However, it's quite rare that a setting would envision every possible outcome for our Earth all in one go. Earth, or Terra as it's called in the grim dark setting of 40k, has suffered complete environmental collapse, entered a golden age, has been nuked to shit, and is now currently one planet-wide city that is absolutely miserable to live on. Like, I'm talking population in the quadrillions, which is obscene to think about. Today we'll go over the history of mankind's birthplace.
What is that quadrillion? Quarter of a million. Not really. For what? Quadrillion. What is a quadrillion? At least 9 zeros. Yeah, no fucking shit. 9 zeros is a billion. What is a fucking quadrillion? 100 trillion? 100 trillion is a quadrillion?
Before
That's
then
a lot.
diving into what life is like.
There's no way. There's no way. There's no way 100 trillion humans fits on Earth. What is the fucking base size of a human if they're standing up? They cannot stand on water. All of humanity fits in fucking Grand Canyon. Yeah, all of humanity is fucking 7 billion. We're talking not 1 trillion, which is 1,000 times that. We are talking 100 trillion. So you said 100 trillion. If that's true. 1,000 trillion. Sorry, 1,000 trillion. Which is 1 million times that. Sorry, not 1 billion. 1 million would be
Life
7.
of Terra, and what purpose does the cradle of humanity serve in the current millennium? Let's get into it. The ancient history of Terra lines up pretty closely with our own
I lost my
Earth.
train of thought. But 1 trillion or 1,000 trillion is 1 million times billion. But we have 7 billion people on Earth.
With some key differences. One of those being that evolution from monkeys to humans was likely due to the old ones having a bit of a cheeky dabble with their DNA, and that the ancient shamans on Earth were actually very early psychers. Other than a few name changes, like America, Germany, and Britannia, the land masses and history of Terra are almost the same. After the 21st century, for the next 10,000-ish years, mankind on Terra entered into an age of progress, where scientific achievement and peace became the vibe. Our local star system was colonized, and the 420th remaster of Skyrim was released. Humanity did make some attempts at leaving our local solar system to colonize distant promising star systems, but without faster than light travel, it was taking a long ass time to reach even nearby systems. Regardless, these 10,000 years looked a lot like our standard sci-fi predictions would. There would have been some degree of environmental preservation and population control, as Terra and Mars would have needed to produce enough food to feed the entire solar system, along with the fact that humanity before the Age of Strife was considered pretty enlightened. Then, in the 18th millennium, the warp drive was invented, a tool that allowed ships to cover extremely far distances in incredibly short amounts of time. Trips that would take thousands of years now only took 2 weeks. Yes, there were some horrifically violent and unfortunate warp-related accidents when the drives were first being tested, but after the subsequent invention of the Gellerfields, mankind was ready to absolutely fucking send it. and send it they did. Large swathes of the galaxy were colonized as mankind's population exploded. Contact and agreements were made with the Elder and other Xenos, whilst Orcs stood little chance against the might of mankind at its peak. Throughout all of this, Terra remained the beating heart of mankind and its capital. It wasn't yet some religious shrine or anything silly by this point, as mankind was in its golden age, also ironically called its dark age. Hence they were leaning pretty heavily on the atheist side of things. In the 22nd millennium, navigators began to randomly pop up, which allowed for even greater warp travel. Humanity was unstoppable, until it fucking wasn't. They must not have been watching many movies in the 25th millennium, as when their legions of robotic AI servants rode up against them, they were taken by surprise. All their obscene weaponry was turned on themselves as they battled for their very existence. Mankind, with the help of various Xenos, did triumph over their ungrateful asshole robots, but the damage was bad. To make matters worse, various psykers began to pop up across the galaxy, and without the training and conditioning that psykers need, they were soon possessed by demons and became living gateways to hell. On top of this, the Elder were in the process of murder fucking Slaanesh into existence, which filled up the galaxy with warp storms, making warp travel incredibly difficult, cutting off mankind's empire from itself.
If you are gonna get into the 40k stuff, you are gonna have to get used to the ridiculous numbers. Also, I'm amazed you haven't learned how much a quadrillion is. Here, let me help. 7 quadrillion, 777 trillion, 777 billion, 777 million, 777,000, 777.
As well as the rampaging psykers. However, to their credit, they were able to overcome both challenges. However, humanity was mentally scarred and untrusting. Instead of reuniting their world and attempting to reclaim their empire, the humans on Terra thought it would be funny to nuke the ever-living shit out of each other, turning Terra into an irradiated wasteland that was more or less
Forsen, have you taken your meds today? Your math skills
Mars
seem to be
visited
off
Terra
today.
to see how things were going and if they could rebuild mankind's empire.
True.
However, they were
I
so
was thinking
disgusted
something
by
was
how
wrong with my
savage and
math
regressed
skill.
their neighbors had become that
My
they simply
cognitive
left the planet
functions
to
aren't
rot.
working
This is
properly
how
without
Terra
my
remained for
medicine.
the next 5,000 years. Like, shit did stabilize a bit. The environment actually made a bit of a comeback due to the massively reduced human population. Various empires rose, some of which still maintain various technologies from mankind's golden age. With the birth of Slaanesh soon to occur, an opportunity arose. An opportunity that one gold-obsessed man took. See, the Emperor had been on Terra this whole time. Man was over 20,000 years old. However, he did not intervene or try to take over, as A, mankind was doing fine, and B, mankind had the means to destroy him if they did not like what he had to say. Hence, with mankind now in its weakened state, as well as the fact that Slaanesh's birth would remove most of the warp storms that prevented interstellar travel, the Emperor made his move. Combining his overpowered psychic abilities with his knowledge of biomancy, the Emperor led the greatest army mankind had seen in over 5,000 years. One by one, the empires of Terra fell and joined the Emperor's Imperium of Man. Once the Unification Wars, as it was called, came to a close, the Emperor lubed himself up and prepared to have his way with the galaxy, hence took off into the stars. Terra was once again the heart of mankind's second attempt at clapping some galactic cheeks. It quickly went from a polluted wasteland to a very, very populated and polluted megacity. Only one ocean remained on Terra for a time, but that too was soon polluted beyond use and eventually evaporated. To the Emperor's credit, the Mad Lad did turn the entire Himalayan mountains into a fuck-off huge imperial palace, so that was pretty cool. It basically became Coruscant from Star Wars, but way shittier and way more populated. But don't worry, it would get even shittier. When Horus went full Bul jihadist mode and attacked Terra, the world was fortified. Most of the beautiful and cultural architecture was torn down and replaced with vicious fortifications. When the battle begun, the only place that was actually properly defended was the Imperial Palace. The rest of the world was told to basically just clench their assholes real tight. At first, the people of Terra were mostly okay, as the traders focused their efforts on sieging the palace. But as the siege went on, the Emperor's children Space Marines got bored, and they decided to use the populace of Terra for entertainment. They hunted, killed, and kidnapped millions of people before, I kid you not, turning them into space cocaine. Terrible time to be an Imperial citizen. But here's the kicker. Despite a shitload of them dying, the world was so populated that it barely made a dent. Horus dies and the Emperor ascends to godhood, being placed onto the Golden Throne and turning Terra into one big wank fiesta for the Emperor. Although it seemed impossible, Terra's population once again dramatically increased. No longer...
Alright, we learned some